Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, friends. It's time once again to board that beauty, the NCC 1701, as we watch Star Trek, the original series, the third and final season, episode 21, The Cloud Minders. Friends, we are T-4 until the end of this series. I have that homesick feeling because I am already missing this incredible crew that I have grown to love with both your guidance and these adventures that we've been on, friends. But you know what? Let's give these last four their just desserts because it's time to watch them, it's time to appreciate them, and it's time to fly at least 4 more times aboard the Beauty. Friends, if you could do me a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. It greatly helps out a small channel and it allows us to alert you next time it's time to go live. And of course, if there's anything that we do that you would like early or in its full-length format, the link to our Patreon is in the description. Not a fan of Patreon? Stick with us here on YouTube memberships. You'll get all of our episodes about a day early, plus any bonus episodes we come up with. But my dear friends, all that is then and this is now. And as a quick note, I would let everybody know that while our adventures aboard the NCC 1701, the original may be concluding, the movies come next. The animated series will be joining Saturday morning Reactoons. And of course, to points further in the timeline with the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and everything Star Trek. Friends, prepare to engage maximum warp reaction. And for the fourth to last time, away we go! Look at that beauty. You talk about a beauty I will miss. Those spinning nacelles, ugh.
It threatens to destroy the vegetation on the entire planet, leaving it uninhabitable.
Another plague, huh?
We're proceeding at top warp speed to the planet Ardana, where the only known source of Xenite exists.
Ardana.
The High Advisor of Ardana is ready to receive you on Stratus, sir.
On Stratus? That's their cloud city, isn't it, Mr. Scott?
Stratus, cool.
Mr. Scott, are you locked in on the mine entrance or on their cloud city, Stratus?
The mine entrance. That's what you ordered, Captain.
I wanted to see the Cloud City, said Jim.
Oh, and tell them that we appreciate the honor and that we look forward to some visit in the future.
I see.
It'd be so funny if he came back out of the elevator and told her something else. Oh, and cool planet.
Stratus, Captain.
That's awesome.
Yes, art is the population's chief occupation.
It is a totally intellectual society. All forms
Really?
of violence have been eliminated.
There's the mine entrance.
We'll see about that. No violence? We'll see about that. Great shot. Breaking out the crane.
When we beam down.
Perhaps there is another entrance, Captain. Perhaps.
Oh no, these were the coordinates provided, right? They said they provided the mine entrance and the Stratus coordinates.
And the troglodytes have changed their minds about delivery.
Oh, so much for that violence. Well, hey guys. Where's Shredder? Jim's going to tell us about the final frontier. Interesting setup. So we've got a community here in Stratus on their Cloud City, not to be confused with Bespin, especially since this is a decade and change before that. Very interesting setup in that this is an art-dominated society and that Jim has been here once. Huh. I don't know what that speaks of a positive or negative experience, but he said he didn't have time to look around or sightsee or whatever, so he might have been here on business again. And the plague is supposed to take out all vegetation on the planet, which would render it lifeless. That sucks. Some type of blight, I guess. All right, let's see what they got for us. Margaret Arman, David, Judd Taylor. This is definitely a different production order than if we remember our Q&A with Judd Taylor.
Command Council on an emergency mission.
Move on, Captain.
Jim said, you want to wrap me up in a lasso? Fine, I will charge you and dropkick you. Not a chop. Come on, guys. Oh, a chop and a right hook. Oh, great stunt. I love it. You know when Spock's pissed when he looks like he's in the fight. Dear. Those aren't our transporters.
Surrender or we'll fire!
That certainly didn't look like a stun.
No, just a little shaken up.
I'm Placis, High Advisor of the Planet Council.
I've seen that actor in 1,000 things.
Greetings, Mr. Advisor. My regrets for the unpleasantness of your welcome to Ardana.
I think I have.
Well, I'm more concerned with the Xenite consignment. Why wasn't it in its specified location?
Apparently, the disruptors have confiscated it just as I knew they would.
Then why did you put that there?
A small group of troglodyte malcontents. All the other troglodytes are completely dominated by them.
Stripe in his beard?
They agreed, obviously, as a ruse to get valuable hostages.
Hostages?
You guys.
Be our guests on Stratus.
Very well. I do hope the search will be brief, Mr. Advisor.
We'll do everything possible to make it so.
I take it back. I'm not sure I've seen that actor before. His delivery and voice doesn't sound like the person I'm thinking of, so.
The finest example of sustained anti-gravity elevation I've ever seen.
Nice. I was wondering if it was anti-grav. Not a lot went into the budget for the wardrobe in this one.
Gentlemen, one of our planet's most incomparable works of art. My daughter Droxine.
Droxine.
I have never before met a Vulcan, sir.
Nor I a work of art, madam.
Oh, Spock! That is a saucy answer for you.
They hope to force the Council to accede to their demands.
What are the demands?
Completely unreasonable, Captain, but nothing you need be concerned with.
Freedom.
Have been most wearying. No doubt you would like to rest. That would be most welcome, Mr. Advisor. Chambers have been prepared for you. A sentinel will guide you to them.
The hats that the Sentinels wear look like a combination of a chef's hat and a beret. For some reason, I'm here for it.
Do you think that Captain Kirk and his very attractive officer feel that we're responsible for their injuries?
All this time I thought you were worried about our diplomatic relations.
That is incorrect.
Remove his shields. What is your business in Stratos, Troglodyte?
Ah, they're underground, so the sun is bad. Too bright for their eyes.
Where is it? It was forgotten. Did you also forget your transport card?
Is she working with them?
By giving us the names of the disruptors. I know nothing. I would advise you to increase your knowledge.
Ooh, I would advise you to increase your knowledge. Wow!
How unfortunate.
This is an interesting start to an episode. We stuck with them. That's very rare.
Planet is a place of the most violent contrasts.
Internal Spockalogue?
Here on Stratus, everything is incomparably beautiful and pleasant. The High Advisor's charming daughter, Droxine.
Charming? Uh-oh.
There, the harsh life in the mines is instilling the people with a bitter hatred.
This is a good way to save money. A Spock love interest episode? I am 1,000% here for it.
Mr. Spock, I thought you had accompanied Captain Kirk to the rest chamber.
Your movements awakened me.
You're so damn loud out here.
It seems that Vulcans are fascinatingly different.
I like the use of your word.
The same may be said of Stratos inhabitants.
This is flirty banter. Was she the one that led the attack?
Vulcans are as highly evolved as Stratos city dwellers.
Oh, a high compliment. You're almost as smart as us.
Pride ourselves on our logic.
That flashback and showing her in that like superimposed transparency was a great way to make sure that we knew that this was the rebel leader. Well done. Well constructed opening to this one. And I actually dig those weapons with like the underhand. Well, she keeps trying to point it at him.
You again.
The hell are you doing?
You sleep lightly, Captain.
I have to. Assassins.
I see you've changed your dressmaker.
Look at him smiling.
Call the guards if you're afraid, Captain.
This is Jim
I was
Kirk.
afraid. You answer some questions.
I'll let you go.
I'll let you up.
Or
I will answer.
Yeah, get the real story here if you can, Jim. Something else is going on. Okay, so she's a liar.
You only take a mate once every 7 years.
At that time, the mating drive outweighs all other motivations.
I love cutting back to this.
And is there nothing that can disturb that cycle, Mr. Spock?
Extreme feminine beauty is always disturbing, madam.
Spock?
Oh, damn it. Jim blocked.
Has she injured you, Captain?
Oh, no, not at all. In fact, her visit was quite enlightening.
Oh?
Yes, it seems the troglodytes are under the impression that the Enterprise is here to intimidate them.
It is not impression, Captain. It is the truth.
We're here to get that Xenite consignment, and that's it.
That's it.
I speak for my people. They have as much right to the clouds as the Stratus dwellers.
The Stratos is for advisors and studiers. And your eyes are not accustomed to light. Just as your minds are not accustomed to logic.
Huh. Methinks I see the problem.
They mine Xenite for shipment, till the soil. Those things cannot be done here.
In other words, they perform all the physical toil necessary to maintain Stratus.
Slave labor.
They are not allowed to share its advantages.
How can they share what they do not understand?
Why don't we give them a shot?
The complete separation of toil and leisure has given Ardana this perfectly balanced social system, Captain.
From your side, it seems super balanced.
Here in Stratos, we have completely eliminated violence.
Cut to.
Troglodyte is an abbreviation of an ancient Earth term, Captain.
Troglodyte.
Translation is cave dweller.
Yo.
Violence, in reality, is quite different from theory, is it not, madam?
But what else can they understand, Mr. Spock?
Compassion.
They're a conglomerate of inferior species. The abstract concepts of an intellectual society are beyond their comprehension.
How the hell did you guys make it in the Federation?
A few troglodytes are brought here as retainers. Vanna was one of them, as are the Sentinels.
The Sentinels are troglodytes?
The only way you'll use that device again is on one of us.
An imposing display of primitive gallantry, gentlemen. You realize, of course, that the Sentinels could remove you.
They could certainly try.
Why are you so concerned with this disruptor's well-being?
Because she's making sense.
You will return to your ship at once, or I shall contact your Starfleet command myself and report your interference with this planet's government.
Okay, friends, I have a question. I have no way to figure this one out. I'm trying to think of other societies that might have similar things, like similar caste systems like this that are in the Federation. Does the Federation differentiate membership based upon something like this? Like, would they exclude? Should they have excluded this planet?
Kirk appears again. Kill him.
Oh! Kill? Oh, Mr. Enlightened. Hey, everybody, here's Socrates. He's got a gun.
We've received word from Merrick II that the botanical plague is spreading rapidly. Delivery of the Xenite is imperative within 12 hours, or all life on the planet will be annihilated. In my opinion, Place's method of accomplishing delivery will not succeed.
There you are, Plum. I was getting worried you wouldn't be here.
Those who live on Stratus and those who live below all originated on the planet. Their physical and mental evolution must be similar.
Unless it's being suppressed.
Well, I had this Xenite sample sent up from the surface. Now, unsealed, it would have had detrimental effects on everybody here.
Really?
But in its raw state, it emits a odorless, invisible gas that retards the intellectual functioning of the mind.
It seems impossible. They've outwitted a highly organized scientific culture for months.
As part of the staff of Stratus, Vanna was removed from exposure for a long period.
That's right, she was in the house.
Does the brain return to normal?
According to findings, it should.
Can you neutralize the gas?
No, but a filter mask should remove the exposure.
Find one. This mask automatically eliminates all substance injurious to humanoid life, chemical as well as bacterial.
He's not going to want that.
There's every indication that the effect of the gas is temporary, even after repeated exposure.
They know all this.
We've checked his findings through the computer, and they're absolutely valid.
And do your computers explain?
It's interesting. A view screen in the transporter room.
There's no time to argue about the findings now. I simply propose to tell Vanna all about them.
I doubt whether even Vanna will believe such nonsense.
Why don't we send you down to the mine, buddy, for a day or two, see how you feel?
Are you afraid the filter masks will work? Is that why you don't want the troglodytes to try them?
You are here to complete an emergency mission, not conduct tests, Captain.
I'm here to get that Xenite.
One way or the other.
Your Federation orders do not entitle you to defy local governments. This communication has ended.
Hey, buddy, we're here to save lives. So if you're not going to help, we're going to do it anyway.
Captain, if you are apprehended, deliberately violating the High Advisor's orders,
They're not going to be able to come for you.
that a first officer is more expendable than either a doctor or a captain.
Officially, yes, but this mission is strictly unofficial. Nobody's to have any part in it, any responsibility.
Semantics by Jim. Surprise.
All the troglodytes wear these masks?
Yes, I'll see to it that the Federation engineers construct them.
Suppose Placis does not agree.
Blastus is not the whole government.
He's not going to.
I give you my word.
Centuries ago, Stratus was built by leaders that gave their word.
I'm not from Stratus.
Ours can be centuries, just as words can be lies.
Okay.
Trust me. Please.
Giving you no reason not to.
The consignment lies deep in the mines, in a place known only to troglodytes. I cannot direct you. I must take you there.
Okay. Well, that means I got to break you out of prison.
It's the Sentinel with my refreshment.
Jim, how about we just beam out of here instead of attacking the Sentinel? And the Sentinel should be a troglodyte, correct? Shazam! We have seconds before his bowels release.
Transport pass to leave the city.
Why don't we just beam down there? Why do we have to break out of here? Never mind, that was relatively easy. We haven't been down any caves for quite some time.
We had a bargain. Why did you break it?
Did you really think I would trust you, Captain? I'm not such a fool.
Then you are a fool. These masks will free you, just as I said.
They look ridiculous, but they will work.
In the meantime, taste of our existence, Captain. Dig as the troglodytes do. As the troglodytes
Without that mask, I haven't.
You know, F this whole planet.
Unless he has made his escape from Stratus to the mines, his life is in danger from the High Advisor.
There's Sulu. Or what, I wonder if that was stock or earlier footage.
Searchers will be coming soon, Mydro. Go to the other mines and tell the troglodytes to post watchers.
What of him?
I will see that he doesn't escape.
Okay.
Can you do nothing but argue? The searchers will be here soon.
When Anka returns, we will all say.
There's a big vote coming, everybody.
Mydro is a child.
The masks can change that.
Return to the digging, Captain.
Or I could throw some of this in your face.
It's quite a while. Longer than I expected.
Ha-ha! Pocket sand! Jim, stay frosty. We'll die down here now.
We're sealed in.
You are.
Kirk Enterprise. Enterprise, come in. Kirk Enterprise.
You might want to check for a signal before that, Jim.
Kirk Enterprise.
Spock here. We've been trying to make...
Damn.
Hold on these coordinates. Locate the High Advisor and beam him to these coordinates immediately. Without advance communication. Repeat.
This is called kidnapping.
Is clear, I shall carry them out immediately.
Spock says that was an order.
You would seal Placis here also? For what purpose?
Shits and giggles, honey. Shits and giggles.
I forbid you ever to speak of Captain Kirk, even to think of.
She's not thinking of Kirk.
Incredibly sensitive hearing. Why, I almost believe that if I stood here and called out to him, he would hear my invitation to come and visit.
I find this relationship fascinating. I use the word fascinating, yes.
Our guard was found half unconscious. He'd been attacked by Captain Kirk.
Where is Captain Kirk?
He did not know, sir. He did not regain his senses until I came to his aid.
How'd they know it was Kirk, though? He got shot in the back.
No more defense of them.
Fiddlesticks.
Father, are we so sure of our methods that we never question what we do?
Spock to transporter room.
Scott here.
Light 'em up.
Aye, sir. Energizing.
This is such a violation of orders. It's crazy.
He's on his way to the captain.
Good work, Mr. Scott.
Bounced him.
Are you suggesting that I dig Xenite?
I insist.
You will indeed pay for this.
This is crazy. This is...
You too, Vanna. You too. Dig!
Jim, wow. Woo!
Your orders are to stand by. I carry them out. Kirk out.
Standing by, Captain.
However, let me remind you, we have only 5 hours left.
This communication is over.
Captain.
Can the Xenite be affecting it?
Hell yes. You're answering your own question, Plum.
Dig, imbecile, will die. I said dig!
Whoa! This is getting so bad.
Are you as brave with Morte as you are with a phaser?
Both will kill.
What are we doing? Oh my god, if he had caught that, I would have shit. You're gonna break that arm, Jim. Jesus. Yeah, Vanna.
Enterprise!
Enterprise. Spock here.
They'll kill each other. Help us! Help us!
See how quick I think they sped up the film there.
Yeah, the Xenite gas has affected you. Captain! The Xenite gas! Couch him! Yeah.
Take that double chop.
Well,
That went terribly. Plum, speechless. Think about that.
You could have had those filters for all the good it will do you.
They will be very effective, sir. They've been severely tested, and the troglodytes will no longer suffer.
Woo! You think he's gonna let this go, Jim?
I shall go to the mines. I no longer wish to be limited to the clouds.
Look at you.
Your planet like this one?
No. No, Vulcan is quite different.
Someday I should like to visit it.
The Federation Bureau of Industrialization may be of aid to you.
I will tolerate absolutely no interference. You are guilty of abduction, Captain.
And you're guilty of attacking a starship, Commander, and plotting against his life.
Captain, perhaps both incidents are best forgotten.
Yes.
Jesus, Jim.
They never happened, Mr. Advisor. Mr. Spock, let's get that Xenite delivered. I believe we only have 3 hours left.
2 hours, 59 minutes to be exact, Captain.
I'm sure you are exact, Spock. I'm sure you are.
Mr. Scott, beam us up.
Any parting words, Spock? Look at her. Oh, look at her cruising. Got chills. Oh, you are a beauty. I very much enjoyed that episode. Very much enjoyed that episode. All right, everybody, we just finished watching the 21st episode of the third and final season of Star Trek, the original series, entitled The Cloud Minders. And the only thing left to do is talk about it. All right, everyone, we just finished the 21st episode of the third season of Star Trek, the original series, The Cloud Minders. Friends, I like this one. I always seem apologetic whenever I like something from season 3, you know, like, oh, I'm sorry, everyone, but this was good. I actually really did enjoy this. I thought that there was a level of realism in this episode that we don't normally see. Jim did some stuff that was Jim-esque, you know, wasn't so wildly not Jim that we could say that's not how Jim would react in the situation. It is something that Jim would do. I just don't think it was necessarily one of his better plans. You know, abducting the leader of a planet is you better have a good damn reason to do that. Did he have a good damn reason? Jim certainly thought so. But again, Placis was a very good character, very good character. You know, again, you can easily kind of pigeonhole him into like, oh, well, he's with the upper crust. He's with the higher caste. Of course, he wants to maintain that situation. The thing is, I'm sure his predecessor did the same thing. I'm sure their predecessor did the same thing. You know, so it wasn't like this was his duty. His duty was to maintain the way that this world worked. And I don't think that in and of itself makes him evil or a bad person. That's all he knew. They never gave us any revelation that, you know, the people up in Stratus knew about the gas. You know, I thought that was going to be the thing. Like, yeah, we know about that, but, you know, F them. Someone's got to dig that stuff. They didn't know about that. And because they didn't know about that, we have to take Placis for his word, you know, that this was in fact the reason why he maintained the type of rule that he had. The way that this whole place worked was because of this. He was told that this was the way that the troglodytes, you know, preferred to live, or the way that, you know, they couldn't exist because of, he seemed to believe all of that stuff. You know, he certainly didn't seem like he was giving a company line. You know what I mean? He actually had investment in the way it was run. And he seriously thought that Jim's interference was going to absolutely kind of ruin the rule of law, you know, absolutely destroy their government, the way that their society was structured. You know, he had very good points of argument about why this was being done. You know, Vanna also had obviously excellent points. She didn't know why she was doing this, but, you know, her being up in Stratus enabled her mind to clear enough that she realized the atrocities that were being performed upon her people. And, you know, everybody really had a basis of understanding in this, which made for a really good conflict. Vanna knew that her people were being, at the very least, disrespected, at the very height, put into slave labor. Placis knew that this was the way this place ran. He had no extra knowledge. He had no, you know, he wasn't able to glean or divination into what that gas was really causing an effect. He didn't believe that shit at all because, honestly, if he were to accept the idea that this gas was causing the troglodytes to experience that's a crisis of conscience right there. Like, oh my God, if that's the truth, then what have I been doing all these years? That's not a discussion you're ready to have with yourself if, you know, nobody in the past ever figured that out. You know, of course he was dismissive, deservedly so, because he had been told since probably birth that this is the way things were. And of course, Jim's position is equally as valid. You know, we have an entire planet that is going to die. We need to get this shit out of here. Absolutely too sweet. And of course, all of these differing ideas and differing like platforms came to a head. You couldn't get agreement between the three to get the Zenite up to the Enterprise because they thought the Enterprise was there to help with the subjugation. You know, nobody believed anybody because if to believe the other person would contradict your own core beliefs, and nobody could do that. You know, it was a standoff. Everybody was just standing there, guns ablazing. It was like, you know, good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, I mean, nobody could trust anybody to do what needed to be done here to save the other planet because there was a planet already in crisis. You know, and it was a really interesting both political and like societal conundrum that we were thrown into. And I greatly enjoyed the entire idea behind this one. It was very well put together. It was very well executed. Nobody was in the right or wrong because people were in both the right and the wrong in their understanding. You know, their base knowledge was contradictory because that's all they had. It wasn't there. No one was lying. No one was manipulating to the best of their knowledge. Interesting stuff. And now the B plot, I guess, the B plot between was it Droxine? Droxine and Spock, I found very interesting, fascinating even, in that one, you had somebody that saw, was basically had the comparison between Kirk and Spock. We've seen numerous times how, Kirk is the one that everybody kind of gravitates towards, or, Kirk's the one, I guess, that steps forward to take any type of like romantic possibility in an episode. Seeing Spock in that situation, I thought was delicious. I thought it was really good because one, Spock wouldn't even have entertained conversation with her if he wasn't in some way interested. I mean, when she talked about, every 7 years, isn't there a way to, maybe accelerate that or start? And there's always a way. I thought that was fantastic, because to me, anytime we have conversations like that, or anytime we have moments like that with Spock, I always see my headcanon is, that's his human half, like bubbling right up against that logic barrier, right up against, that Vulcan training. And, again, did Leonard Nimoy display any emotion? Did he display anything that we would point at and say, that Spock would never do that? Absolutely not. But did he play in that little spectrum we always talk about, that range that keeps Spock honest, but also allows Leonard Nimoy to play? Oh, hell yeah, he did. And it was beautiful. I just really appreciate stuff like that. Is your planet like this? No, Vulcan's nothing like, I would love to see your planet sometime. I think it would have been a step too far if Spock would be like, I would like to show you my planet sometime. That was the step too far. So Leonard Nimoy, I mean, obviously the dialogue in the script called for it too. So, good on Margaret for knowing exactly what Spock would have said in this moment. I believe that Margaret Arman, was the writer on this one. I might be miscrediting. There were some other names in there too. But with this one, we are able to, Spock doesn't say anything, but still it's the unspoken, like, I think I'd like to show you Vulcan sometime. We didn't hear that from Spock's lips, but I gleaned that, like, I think Spock would definitely show her Vulcan, It sounds like a euphemism, but he definitely would. Again, I am very, very, very impressed with what they do in this third season, knowing full well the budgetary constraints and the intense kind of like political pressure the studio was putting on this show. Very, very good. Obviously we didn't have Sulu, we didn't have Chekhov, we didn't have Chapel in this one. And I think the shot of Sulu where Spock was in the chair was reused footage because, they are making it very deliberate now. They have like camera, like the camera kind of like setups now where it cuts right across the bridge over to Scotty at the bridge engineering station, Uhura up at communications, the chair, and Spock science. Navigation and helm are completely cut off, so we don't see who's sitting there. Again, I'm sure they couldn't pay everybody, and again, we're running down towards the end. Now we're at the final 3 episodes. But again, I think that their approach to this shows the creativity that is still so apparent in the Star Trek, the original series. They were still going for it. They were still trying to do as much. They were squeezing every atom of creativity out of every penny they were given. No better example than that in this episode than of the overlay where Spock was doing the Spockalogue, where he was talking about everything that had occurred, and we saw like a repeat. It introduced Vana, so we were able to actually see her face without the, the mask or the visor or anything. Really well done, but they literally duplicated footage that we had just seen, less than 5 minutes before. They showed almost the entire clip again, which again bought them time, and all it really required was a voiceover from Leonard Nimoy. Bought time, really good stuff, and it didn't, you don't look at it and go, oh, they were bamfing, they needed some extra, they were trying to draw and string it out. Yes, they were, but it still works in the story. It still captures that kind of really good essence, that introspection from Spock that now we know after Droxine comes forward, we need that. We need that touchstone with Spock to kind of set everything up. Very well done. Creatives are going to create. If you give them $1, they'll spend $1. You give them $1 million, they'll spend $1 million. But only the best ones get as many pennies of thought out of those as they possibly can. And friends, I have seen no let up in Star Trek, the original series. They are absolutely going for it. I love it. I love it. It's almost like they're going down with the ship and, the band played on, everybody. The band played on. Anywho, just another really fun. I'm so glad that, again, it's easy, I think, to, and especially for me, You know, everything that I've read in Q&As, you know, season 3 suffers all. And again, I don't try to look for things in advance, but, you know, anytime I was looking up something for season 1 and season 2, there would inevitably be a sentence in there somewhere that said something to the effect of, you know, unlike season 3, the budget was still there for this, that, and the other thing. Unlike season 3, guest stars and scripts were more prevalent. Unlike season 3, when this XYZ happened, you know. So I was kind of going into season 3 thinking, oh my gosh, this is the gauntlet, you know, and it has been. You can tell that there is definitely a reduction in budget, but boy, oh boy, friends, there's not a reduction in the spirit that I loved in seasons 1 and seasons 2. You know, I'm sure that behind the scenes, it's been really rough, but friends, what they're putting in front of the camera, in my mind, for my money, are still adventures I would love to see again and again. But friends, speaking about behind the cameras, there is only one person that has helped us out in the past. I'm sure they'll help us out in this instance to tell us everything that went on behind the cloud minders. So friends, all we have to do is ask. General? Greetings and salutations, my friends. 'Tis I, leader of men, lover of women, and best friend to Jim Kirk, General Trelane, retired. Friends, this is where, after having watched and reacted to an original series episode of Star Trek, I like to dig a little bit deeper and find out what went on behind the cameras. Information that if I had looked up beforehand would have ruined the episode for me. But to keep myself along the straight and narrow and not off into the weeds for 3 hours, I've given myself 5 categories to explore. The first of which, writer and director. Who were they? The second, guest stars. Did we have any? The third, of our core cast, or the Big 8, who was present? The fourth and juiciest of all the categories, the production notes. What went on behind the cameras? And last but certainly not least, my friends, Category 5, a memorable quote from this episode. Let's get started. All right, friends, and for our very first category of writer and director, who were they? Well, we had 3 writing credits in this one for writer. The original story was given to us by David Gerrold and Oliver Crawford. Gerrold last seen in, I guess, Trouble with Tribbles all the way back there. And then Oliver Crawford, Galileo 7, but then which one did he help out with in the 3rd season? Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. I'm pretty sure about that. So, which is a nice segue to our director, or I should say that the 3rd credit, the one that took the original story and turned it into the production script, was Margaret Arman. More on that when we get down into production notes, because this was a bit of a test for Margaret as the producer. Well, we'll get into it, but think of it like this. While she was tasked with writing the script, there was more riding on it than just the production of this particular episode. Now, our director for this episode was none other than Judd Taylor. This episode, The Cloudminders, was actually filmed before Mark of Gideon, the block that was Mark of Gideon and Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. How do we know this? Well, they tell us, they tell us the production order, but also because Judd Taylor was fired after he ran over on that block of Mark of Gideon and Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. So we don't see Judd Taylor again, but now we do in this kind of off-kilter, you know, non-sequential directorial and production offering. So this is, I think, the last time we see Judd Taylor, if what I read was correct. I don't think he directs the last 3 episodes, but hey, surprises happen. Let's move on. All right, friends, and for our second category of guest stars, did we have any? Well, we sure did. We had 3 of them, my friends, as we had Jeffrey Corey as Placis, we had Charlene, I think it's Polite, as Vanna, and we had Diane Ewing as Droxine. I thought they were all excellent. I think really they sort of made this episode, the guest stars did. So let's move on. All right, everybody, and now for our 3rd category of our core cast, or the Big 8, who was present. Well, who are the Big 8? Well, we've got Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Sulu, Scotty, Uhura, Chekhov, and Chapel. Of all of those people who were here, we did not have Sulu, Chekhov, or Chapel. That's a lot. Well, let's move on. All right, friends, and for our 4th category, the production notes, the spiciest and juiciest of all of our categories, where we learn what went on behind the cameras. let's get started. All right, friends, and for our very first production note, this is the one that I mentioned before. Margaret Arman was tasked by Fred Freeberger to basically rewrite this script and make it ready. But what Freeberger was actually doing was he was kind of testing Arman out to take over as essentially like predominant showrunner and like script advisor, the role that DC Fontana had. And so much like DC Fontana was tasked with, I think it was This Side of Paradise, making sure that that one was kind of fine-tuned and whatnot. The same was done with Margaret Arman, this time with our episode, The Cloudminders. But this was for season 4 and beyond, something that never materialized. I guess in some mirror universe somewhere, Margaret Arman was in fact the story coordinator. Let's move on. All right, friends, and I thought this was a good twofer for our second production note. During the conversation between Droxine and Spock, where many of those conversations were very interesting, but the one where he was talking about the mating ritual, it hit me a little odd too, as it did a lot of the audience members and kind of Star Trek fans that said, Spock wouldn't have been openly talked about this. It was something that in a muck time, he was, we're not going to discuss this with people that aren't Vulcans. It was a very kind of close to this is a cultural thing. They weren't going to just share it with air quote outsiders. But here it was freely expressed to Droxine, which, again, I have a theory about that one, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Again, with this one, too, what I thought was very interesting is Spock says Vulcans pride themselves on their logic. I think that was what they said. They do pride themselves on their logic. I think it was the exact quote. But again, people had problems with that too. And, when it's called out, it does to me too, because pride is certainly an emotional response, or at least an emotional driver for a response. Interesting. Let's move on. And I thought what I would do too for our third production note, my friends, is give credit to Matt Jeffries. He was the designer that actually made the city in the clouds of Stratos with styrofoam and basically like cutting the foam and using pooled cotton to make the clouds. I always think that stuff is really interesting because we know they were on a terrible budget with this, And again, there was plaster and epoxy and all kinds of stuff used. I think they used actual like rulers and sharp edges and things like that to make the actual kind of a cityscape or the city skyline. But I thought it was very interesting, that I thought it came off really well. Again, for the day, I thought the special effects are always great in Star Trek, but this one in particular had a very kind of fantastical element to it, and I think that was captured by Matt Jeffries. So Mr. Jeffries, I wanted to make sure you get your credit where credit is due. Let's move on. And friends, here's a little bit more for our little foreshadowing for our fourth production note. And this one I can actually relate to, and it wasn't a spoiler for me since I have seen The Wrath of Khan. And so the goggles that the miners use are actually repurposed for Wrath of Khan. And when we meet good old Khan on SETI Alpha 5, he is wearing a pair of the miner's goggles. So we'll be looking for that when we get to Wrath of Khan, my friends. Let's move on. And now for our fifth and final production notes, my friends. This is an interesting one because I like to pull from, especially people that are experts in Star Trek or considered to be experts. I mean, who am I to judge whether someone is or isn't? But Alan Asherman, I've seen his name numerous times because he has compiled many of the major research books, or at least I don't know if they're the major, but a lot of the research books for Star Trek, a lot of the compilations of behind the scenes and trivia and things like that. So, he suggests that the entirety of this episode, The Cloudminders, is actually a derivative or actually inspired by Metropolis, in which Fritz Lang's, it was in the 20s, I believe, for Metropolis, because it dealt with similar themes, people that live in the heavens, and then the people that are in the lower working caste system down on the planet or down on the ground level. And it also ends with a revolt or the promise of such. So definitely some inspiration there. I don't think it was so much that you would point at it and be like, Metropolis. It's been a hot minute since I've seen that anyway, so I certainly didn't feel that when I was watching it, but a good comparison nonetheless. Let's move on. And now, friends, for our fifth and final category, a memorable quote from this episode. Well, I had to go with this one. because I thought it was very interesting, and to me, My friends, this is Spock's human half bubbling to the surface. Leonard Nimoy is never going to let Spock get un-Vulcan-like, but this one was pretty damn close, and I absolutely love it. I think you know which one I'm going to talk about. Here we go, friends. Spock says to Droxine, "At that time, the mating drive outweighs all other motivations." To which Droxine says, "And is there nothing that can disturb that cycle, Mr. Spock?" And Spock replies, "Extreme feminine beauty is always disturbing, madam." Friends, thus ends another installment of Q&A. Until such time as you and I get to play with our dear friend Jim again, behave yourselves.